On November 23rd, 1926, a severe storm struck Lake Superior, and the huge wooden steam barge Herman H. Hetler was powering its way from Ludington to Duluth with a cargo of 1,100 tons of bulk salt when the storm hit it full force. The waves swelled, the winds reached gale force pitch, a blinding snowstorm struck them in the middle of November. So the Herman H. Hetler attempted to run to shelter in Munising Harbor in the UP in the dark of night, but the ship drove up on a rock reef off Trout Point just outside the East Channel. If you want to see the ship today, you can go diving in the Alger Underwater Preserve. At a depth of about 25 feet, you can see the boiler, a piece of its hull, a field of debris filled with mechanical parts, tanks, piping, even a bathtub. There are shipwrecks all over that part of Lake Superior because Munising is one of the few safe harbors in the southern half of the lake, and because there is a shallow shelf of rock just under the water line at about 5 to 10 feet of depth that extends miles out from shore. It's on this rock reef that so many ships like the Hetler have foundered through the ages. The boat has long been a central metaphor for the Christian church. The area where you're sitting right now, the main assembly area of the church, is called, in traditional language, the nave, which is from the Latin word navus, meaning boat. In many churches, the arched and vaulted roofs that you have over you with its long extended beams is meant to evoke the ribbing of a great upside-down ship's hull. Architecturally, the message has been that the church is where we sail safely through the storms of this world toward our heavenly destination. One of my favorite sanctuaries is in Munising in the UP. Eden Evangelical Lutheran Church has a stunning view of the lake, but mostly because its communion table, its cross, and its baptismal font are made out of the wood of wrecked ships. Perhaps even partially from the wreck of the Herman H. Hetler. That little sanctuary in Munising and our reading from Acts this morning asks us to consider our faith not as something that would spare us the shipwrecks of earthly existence, but one that seeks to find God amidst disaster and look for the divine even in the midst of the wreckage itself. So, there we were in northern Minnesota many years ago, my very serious girlfriend and myself, spending time with my family on their yearly week of vacationing together up at the lake. We were in the heart of Savidesdom, which is not an easy place for any non-Savides to be. Maybe you have similar family rituals and traditions that define what it means to be a part of your family. Entering that particular and peculiar space requires tremendous courage for the non-blood related. God bless my very serious girlfriend for her willingness to undergo such a ritual and, of course, the accompanying family scrutiny. Near the end of the week, the two of us took a long boat ride on the lake and through various streams and rivers out onto the big lake. And what started as a calm and sunny day turned ugly once we were out in the big water. The wind picked up. Whitecaps started lashing at the side of the boat. You know how the song goes, the tiny ship was tossed. And I feared our little 8-foot fiberglass fishing boat with its 9-horsepower motor was not going to make it. My very serious girlfriend saw the wreckage inside of me that day. Panic, fury, fear, and no gift for handling boats or predicting the weather. When we finally made it safely back to shore and avoided wrecking the boat, I wondered if this harrowing experience would make a shipwreck of our relationship. But no, even though my very serious girlfriend saw what a wreck I really was on the inside, she chose me anyways, and she would soon become my very serious fiance and my not so serious partner. I had found my desert island person. Have you ever done that? Have you ever answered the desert island questions. If you were stranded on a desert island, what would be the one book, the one CD, the one movie, the one person? Who and what would that be? Many great books and movies have answered that question for us. And the novel Robinson Crusoe, the author Daniel Defoe shows us the young Englishman Crusoe shipwrecked while on a quest to make a quick profit by gathering slaves in West Africa. Do you remember that part of the book? In his 28 years on the desert island, he will come to believe that this shipwreck had been God's judgment on him and his purpose, similar to the fate of Jonah. But he will also find a devoted companion on that island. Do you remember his name? Friday. Exactly. Friday. Ironically, a native becomes his loyal friend and companion, someone that he might have enslaved if his boat hadn't been wrecked. Perhaps my favorite desert island story is The Black Stallion, the first in a series of books written by Walter Farley, originally published in 1941 and made into a wonderful movie a few years back. Teenager Alec Ramsey is returning from India when his ship is sunk. The only other survivor washed up on shore is an untamed black stallion. Dependent on each other for survival, they learn to love and trust each other. Their strong bond continues even after they have been rescued and returned home. In the more recent movie Castaway, Tom Hanks' character has been sent to a desert island by a plane crash. He spends his first few lonely and terrified nights periodically shining his flashlight on the small picture of his fiance's face, seeking reassurance that he's still alive, that he can still feel, that he can still hope. But batteries run out and photographs are cold comfort. And from his yearning for any kind of relationship, Tom Hanks' character invents a companion. Do you remember his name? Wilson, right. A volleyball with a handprint in blood serving as the outlines of an imagined face, and its name drawn from the brand Wilson printed on the ball. We are desperate, we shipwrecked souls, for someone to come to us when we have crash landed, when we have washed up on shore, when we feel lost and alone, when we imagine ourselves completely deserted. We're desperate for a reliable companion, for a Friday, for a black stallion, a Wilson, a fiance, an Apostle Paul, who can let us know that we're still alive, we can still feel, we can still place hope in a future. One of the privileges of being a pastor is the trust that is sometimes placed in us to be that reliable, companionable presence at a desperate time in someone's life. We're not the only ones, of course. Doctors, nurses, mothers, fathers, firefighters, friends, neighbors, even helpful passing strangers are given that privilege. That's why it's so devastating when we discover that a pastor has betrayed our trust. A police officer has acted out of bigotry or hate. A teacher has been unfair. A friend or partner has been unfaithful. Someone has been offered a glimpse of that secret shipwrecked place in our lives and heart and has betrayed us. I wonder if that's what sends some of those folks marching in fury over the police shootings of young black men. I wonder if that's what has sent so many fleeing from the Christian church in light of the child sex abuse scandals in the Roman Catholic Church and subsequent covers up by those who should know better. I wonder if that's the source of the deep confusion, hurt, and anger we've all felt when somebody who should know better, who should know us better, has betrayed our trust. We are shipwrecked souls, tossed about by forces we can't control, broken on the rocks of bitter experience, and finally washed up on shore, feeling lost and abandoned. How we yearn for the reassuring voice of an Apostle Paul calling out to us, I urge you to keep courage. All is not lost. An angel of the God to whom you belong is telling you, do not be afraid. But we're so panicked, we're so frightened, we're so intimidated by the storms around us, even the sheer immensity of what it is that we are facing. What was the small plaque that President Kennedy kept on his desk? The Breton fisherman's prayer, O God, thy sea is so great and my boat is so small. You've been in a few storms in your life, related to the weather and otherwise, and they make us feel small, so helpless, so threatened, so tossed about by forces far larger than ourselves. One of my favorite guided meditations asks us to imagine that we are experiencing the chop on the water of a windy day, the white caps and waves swells that are casting us to and fro, side to side, back and forward. And then slowly in the meditation we are invited to descend, to sink down below the waterline, protected from wind and wave by the water, the warm and placid water, getting more and more peaceful the deeper we go. Now the wind and waves seem such a small thing, so temporary, so passing, intimidating on the surface, but of so little lasting power down deep. I think that's what Paul was asking those fearful and panicked sailors, prisoners, and slaves to do, to reach down into the deep, abiding peace of God, which transcends the threat of the moment, and keep us safe, loved, and cared for. But sometimes you have to go very deep to feel it. In my research this week, I was reminded of the ocean currents driven by wind that circle our globe, the intricate pattern throughout the world. And I was astounded to discover that those winds influence currents to a depth of over 300 feet in the ocean. Did you know that? 300 feet those currents go. But if you go deep enough, you experience the peace, the stillness. And if you go deeper still, you experience something truly amazing. Thousands of feet below the surface are slow-moving but perceptible ocean currents in the very depths of the sea. These are not driven by wind, but by differences in the water's density, which is controlled by temperature and salinity, processes known as thermohaline circulation. This, too, sounds like what the Apostle Paul was asking those soldiers, prisoners, and slaves to embrace. There are deeper currents at work here. The slow, inexorable power and purpose of the divine that will move us slowly to the deeper hopes of God. Keep up your courage. For I have faith in God, Paul tells them, and he would tell us that too, in the midst of our shipwrecked society, racked by racism, tormented by terror, torn apart by violence, and with no Savior in sight in the political scene. Keep up your courage. Have faith in God and the saving power of God, the deep currents of peace and justice and life and hope that we cannot see on the surface, tossed about by the news cycle and the next campaign ad, but will move us even in the midst of the tumultuous times we live in to a new place of God's making. We sometimes feel ourselves deserted souls in a shipwrecked society. But there is one who is faithfully serving as guide and companion, friend and helper to each and every one of us, moving in the depths of our world and in the deep places of our lives. Take heart. Have courage. Hold fast. Keep strong.